who unfortunately may have missed this talk to go to our website and they will see the full presentation. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, artist Charlie Ritchie. Charlie's artistic career extends over 35 years, and he has focused on impossibly small-scaled images, exploring the environment around his suburban Silver Spring home. Often working on drawings over a long period of time, his work seeks to master the complexity of light, darkness, and reflected images. Charlie has had solo and group shows in many contemporary art galleries, including Bravin Lee programs in New York, Gallery Joe in Philadelphia, and Jason Ham in Seoul, Korea. And by the way, Jason Ham is with us today, and we're very happy to have you join us. In addition, his work has also been shown locally at Newmark Gallery, at Robert Brown Gallery, and at Neptune Brown here in DC. In addition, he has been the recipient of numerous fellowships, among them the France and Virginia Bader Fund in DC, McDowell Colony in New Hampshire, and most recently, Ballinglen Arts Foundation in Ireland. Charlie's work is also in numerous private collections, some of them belonging to the Washington Print Club members. My husband and I have been collecting his work for over 25 years and have already donated or promised all of them to the National Gallery of Art. Many of us Print Club folks know him as a friend from his years in the National Gallery of Art's Prints and Drawings study room. Charlie recently reminded me that the WPC visited his Silver Spring home in the early 2000s when he was working on his Blue Twilight intaglio in his upstairs studio. And today, some 20 years later, he will focus on his first floor studio and his current series, Painting the Night. So please join me in virtually welcoming Charlie. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it, Beverly. Okay, so am I to share my screen at this point?
You are all ready to go.
Okay. And then, okay, great. First of all, thank you to the Washington Print Club for having me today, and Beverly and Chris for inviting me personally, and for all of their years of support. And Nancy Hirschbein poured a lot of energy into this talk. So I deeply appreciate all the work everybody did to make this happen. I also want to talk what I really want to do is divide the talk into 4 different sections. The first part is all about what I do. We're going to get intro to my night painting. Secondly, we'll get an introduction to the studio where I am working. I've been here for 35 years, working in this very spot. Third, I'm going to give you a little view of how I work. I've done a few little videos, and so we'll look at drawings, and I'll show you the process of night painting as it happens in my studio. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about why I do it. I mean, why does somebody get up at midnight and work through to the morning and do night painting? We'll get down to that a little bit later. This is an hour-long talk. I call it Painting the Night because it is really one half or a little more than half of what I do. I do day paintings as well, but we'll not look at those. And we are going to look at all works on paper because that is what I do, is works on paper. So with that, I have timed this to an hour, and let's go. Part 1, I've been painting the night for a very long time. This is an image I did while I was at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh as a painting major grad student in 1978 to 1980. And I was in the 3rd floor of the Fine Arts Building, looking out the window, looking at the constellations of lights, looking out to the valley beyond. It was quite a vista up there. And during the night, it became particularly sort of mysterious to me. I love the constellations of the various lights and my image overlapping it. It became a kind of puzzle, interior and exterior space overlapping. And I was intrigued to try and paint it. It's a difficult thing to capture. And so this sort of epiphany early on developed into later series of paintings. This particular work, 2004, is what I would call a classic piece done right here in the room. And some of the things are very much what I learned at that early stage, and some are quite different. You'll note that I am in this, or at least I have part of myself here. The arc of my shoulder is showing, possibly my head. But I had changed over media. I was originally doing acrylic, working with additive whites, painting white paint. I've shifted over to watercolor very soon after my Carnegie Mellon experience. I was using the white of the paper, which I find far more brilliant. And I love the flow of watercolor, the transparency of watercolor. I think the images have gotten more sophisticated since that earlier one, certainly the handling of washes, but also the articulation of interior spaces and the implications of other spaces beyond, the kitchen on the right, the living room on the left. And then also the suggestion of houses outside. We've traded the urban landscape of Pittsburgh for the suburban landscape, which I kind of grew up in the deep South. So we're seeing an interpenetration of interior and exterior space and a complexity grow with time. Now we moved to Washington, D.C. in 1980, and the work on the left was done. It's one of the first ones I did while I was in this room. And you can see me sort of gathering some of the images I will work with until now, 40 years later or 35 years later. That is as articulated a face as you will see in my work, and we'll talk about that idea of how much of me will go in or out of the work. But there's also large tulip poplar trees in the yard, and this is one of them I was starting to work with. There's a chandelier hanging. Oftentimes I'll hang things from the chandelier, which are part of the image. There's a large dark star map behind my head. And also the implication to the kitchen, the entry to the kitchen, the station where I do my still lifes, we'll see a chest over on the right, and then the house beyond. Okay, 10 years later, you'll see me moving towards a little bit more complexity over on the right. You'll see me sort of hidden behind the paper white flowers in the center of the table. You'll see I'm working with much more complex washes. I was really drawn to black, and I thought by learning black, I could really get a handle on value and establish contrast in value. And with that, I would eventually move to other colors as well. And that's exactly what I did. We'll move to about 10 years later again. And you can see I am starting to add other color. I learned that I could mix something called raw umber violet, that color with the indigo, and the two together make a very near black. And just a little push either way would turn it warm or cool. And then I would start adding underwashes of yellow or reds or blues, things growing more complex. You'll notice there's writing running through this. We're going to talk about my writing. I can read it. I learned how to write very quickly this way, and the kind of privacy for me as well. And I started to integrate those writings into works. And then these works are things that, well, one on the left is one I just finished in February for a show that was at Jason Ham's in Korea. And then the one on the right is a pen and ink drawing that I am still working with. It's almost done. Left, you can see I've expanded my palette constantly to expand my media and try to push things realms. at the same time, I'm always looking back a little bit. Is there something I have forgotten? And it seemed to me not too long ago that I had put out pen and ink, had kind of moved in favor of watercolor, and I started thinking about bringing pen and ink back and ink drawing. We'll see more examples of it along. You'll also notice that I'm working with landscapes by themselves, interiors and reflection pieces. This is one of the houses across the street. I will work on subjects only during the time period that is correct. This is a winter drawing, so I would not work on it during the summer. There are whole groups of drawings I'll put away for whole periods of time and bring them out when the series is right, and this would be a winter work. I would only work on it when the various effects are there. One or more of the lights were on. It's not a wet night. I try to be in tune with the actual subject and work with that subject as it's in front of me. I don't like photographs. I don't work with photographs very much. I always take a picture of something and say, well, that's not what I saw. So it's a memory jog more than anything. And here we see me working with a straightforward landscape, but no, without reflection over it. You'll see some with reflection. And then at the same time, I'm also working with my journals. I keep a journal, a running account of my work as I'm going. On the left is one page from my journal related to the image that we're looking at, a piece called Three Windows. Winter seasons. And this page from my book was done at the end when I was sort of deciding the final colors of what was going to be the finish of this drawing. You'll note that that writing is here. I'm talking about the colors I'm using, various other works I want to consider at the time. Oh, I did back. Let's go forward. And here is the journals themselves. 6 of them of the 157 that now exist. I started these journals in 1977. I have 157 now and counting. They are made by my wife, Jenny. She is a fantastic artist and craftsperson, and she and I collaborate on these. I tear the paper to 12 by 6-inch sheets, and then she folds them, sews them into signatures, and binds them into these linen-bound books. I find that my whole chronology of my work can kind of be looked up through these particular books, and they extend all the way back to when I was 23 years old. Let me show you how I use these books. This was the last week of October of this year. I was sitting at the window. I was noticing that over the house on the right, as the leaves started falling from the large trees, a triangle of light was appearing over the roof of the house on the right side. I became fascinated by it. I started thinking about possibilities of a drawing that would exist outside of the book. One of the things that really excited me was when the street light would come on, all the brownish oak leaves turned this incredible golden pillow of light. And so I captured that in the book. All too quickly, the effects disappeared. I decided I couldn't really pursue it. I didn't know exactly what I wanted. I'll put the book away and pull it out next year when this effect comes around. Look at the ideas that I was considering, see how they've changed over time, and maybe I'll be able to make a decision on where I want to go with the piece outside the book. Another way I use the book is through these kinds of trajectory drawings is what I call them, pieces that have been going on for a while, and I am trying to decide exactly how I want to push them further. The drawing you see on the left is a piece that I've been doing. Oh, I've been working on that for about 11 years, and we'll see the actual piece in just a minute. And the one on the right of the kitchen has been going on for about 3 years. And so I stopped and did trajectory drawings of both of these. And you'll see that drawing a little later in the program. You'll notice that I am doing a lot of writing in these books. And the truth is, most of what the writing is in these books are my dreams. I started doing my books in 1977. The first book is filled with what I did today. And I started to find that very boring after a while. And eventually I stumbled on the fact that I could remember dreams. And I actually enjoyed remembering my dreams and trying to work with these ideas. And I'll show you exactly how I work with them a little bit later. Let's move on and talk a little bit more about the images that are related to what we saw in that book. This is a piece called Late Summer Night. And I have been working on it for 9 years, and it is an experiment in gouache. I haven't used gouache, opaque watercolor, very much. And what I'm trying to do is push this drawing so dark that your eyes will have to adjust when you get into it. So I've got a ways to go, but it's coming along. And so you'll notice that there is a reflection on the left side into the living room, and over on the right side, a reflection to the kitchen. And then the houses that are across the street appear very subtly in these cases. What's happening though is I'm looking at a group of subjects over a long period of time. Sometimes I'm asked, well, how can you keep doing the same subject over and over again? Does it ever bother you? Well, let me show you another work of the very same subject. This is a snow piece using those two houses across the street. There's no reflection. It's done in 2 panels. It's slightly different shape. It was done over the period of time, 2008 to 2011. A lot of good snows happened during that time, and I pulled up to the window and did a whole series of observations working into this drawing over those years, building the image over time. And it's an extraordinary contrast to the previous image. So there is a myriad approaches that I can take to these subjects that I find interesting: material, size, the image, the time of year, all of this working together. Now let's take a little look at a photograph of the space, of the landscape that I'm working with. I took this in February 2013, and I think you'll see it's just an average street, an average road, in an average world. Nothing special about the place. I like to think that anybody could do my project from any window in the world. It's just me trying to look as deep as I can into this particular world. Excuse me. So we've seen what I do, a general overview of the kind of night paintings that I make. Let's take a look at the studio space itself. This is about a 150-degree photograph of the room that I am in. And if it looks like a dining room, it is. I pushed the watercolors back this morning and had breakfast right here. My daughter had most of her 26 birthday parties right here at this table. I'm the cook a lot of times. I have the kitchen right next to me. I'll run in there, start the water for the noodles, come in, put a wash, run back, put the noodles in, come back in, put a wash in, run back out, take the noodles off. In our family, art and life are totally interchangeable. We live with our work. And that's another wonderful thing about watercolor is it's essentially non-toxic, cleans up, and it's ready to go when you are. The room itself, the south wall has a window that we've been looking out of, and you can see I have pushed a makeshift little ledge there for me to pull up to and work from when I'm making my drawings. You see a round table in the center. I often sit at this round table and work, and that's where I'm sitting talking to you right now. There is a chest straight ahead. I have a still life, and a series of still lifes have been done there. To the right of that is the door to the kitchen. And to the right of that is a huge star map, which brings a chunk of night into this room during all times of day. In 1972, I looked in the back of Sky and Telescope magazine, and there was an ad for a map by amateur astronomer David W. Teskey. And he had plotted 5,179 constellations or stars and their constellations, each of the stars at their relative brightness, and done it by hand. And then lithographed it and sold it. And I am so glad I got it. This map has followed me everywhere I go. And it's a little bit of the metaphor for my own project in a way, you know, this love of subject and just sort of falling in deep with mapping your own universe. My friend Peter Turchi is a writer, and he calls me a private astronomer. And indeed, I sort of look at my little landscape like an astronomer might overlook a field of stars and collect the images and the data that I see among them. But it's also a very functional thing in this map, because I lean my drawings up against the map as I'm making them, and I take a look at them there. I mount my drawings to a mat board temporarily while I'm working on them. And so I will lean stacks of them there, and that is where I go through them every morning, deciding what I want to work on for the day. I love building my drawings against this backdrop of stars. Here is one of the drawings I made from this particular work. It is, from the star map. It is a very small piece. Many of my pieces, as Beverly says, are very small, just a little over 4x6, almost a journal page. I feel very comfortable on that size paper. And I worked on it from 2007 to 2012. I love that big block of indigo. It's one of my favorite colors. And I love the way it becomes this kind of building block for my works. I remember I was sitting at the table looking up, and I saw that light from the kitchen coming in, jutting across the map, and I loved that shape, that geometric shape it was making, the various reflections, and I knew that immediately I was going to have to do a map. Incidentally, the stars are pretty close. I did the major constellations. Not every star is exactly right. I think it's about feeling rather than exactness that I'm about, but I will tell you that I did not use additive white. Every one of those stars was worked by working around them. So I'm very, very interested in maintaining that kind of using the white of the paper. Now you also oftentimes see me pulling a drawing down, dropping down to the table, work on it. Oh, I'll work on it for an hour or two. I don't like to work on things more than an hour or two. It keeps me fresh. I like to change it up. I won't work on something for more than 2 days in a row. I let it fall back into the back of the pile. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I just think that things stay fresh when you have lots of different things going. And I forget what kind of troubles I was having with things. Nothing's better than finding an old drawing you've completely forgotten. You have no clue what trouble you had with it, but you've learned something recently and you go, oh, wow, I can do this to this and we can maybe make this work. So it's a process that I go through, using lots of drawings all the time, shifting through them and deciding which to work with. This is what's wonderful, I forgot to say, around that round table is that I can move to any orientation. All these subjects are calling out to me from this very table, and all I have to do is shift around into one of the chairs and I'm looking the orientation that I need to go. And one of the things that I've been working on for many years is this star map, this map, Elijah Burritt's map of the heavens. It's Elijah Burritt's Atlas of the Heavens, published in 1846. Jenny and I found it in an antique shop down in Kensington, Maryland, right near us. And we framed it up just about when we moved into our house, and it's been there. There's a grid running through it with the comets and nebula and stars. And I love the grid, and the grid runs through many of my drawings. And it's lorded over all these various still lifes that I've worked on over the years. This is a particular still life that I'm working on. This is, of course, a photograph. I'll show you my pen and ink drawing of this a little later in the program. But these kinds of subjects just kind of appear. Jenny is a sculptor by nature, and everything she does is a sculpture, I think. And it's just amazing how she has this way of moving things around, and suddenly they lock into some kind of form that's so amazing and beautiful. So she sometimes drops flowers on a vase here without thinking about it, and suddenly I'm off on the next program. So it's a real collaborative effort on lots of levels in the work that I'm doing. Sometimes I think about things and move things around. Accidental. Here is a drawing I did of the subject. And I remember that I actually knocked a lamp over and it fell on the floor. And I looked up and I saw it and I started to pick it up and I said, wait a minute, there's a subject. Let's look at it. So I grabbed my journal and started working. These things happen all the time. I'm open to the accidents of what occurs. You'll notice that my window has a couple of charts on either side of. These are by Andreas Cellarius, Harmonium Microcosmica, and it was done in 1661. On the left is the Copernican theory of the solar system, in which the sun is at the center. On the right is the Ptolemaic theory of the solar system, which has Earth at the center. One's right, one's not right, but I love the idea of these two views of the universe, these imaginations of way things are joining me on my journey as I work. And here is a little close-up of my window station. On the left is a book open almost all the time. This week I was looking at Camille Corot, a artist, a man of sense of value and tone. A incredible collection of art books, postcards. Postcards are constantly the front of my station. I have my journal open here, and I also have my watercolors here off to the right. And we'll look at that a little bit later. This is a drawing I did of that south window with the Cellarius map. And you'll notice I've moved to grass. I just like to change up media because it makes it more interesting. The graphite slowly built up on that same watercolor had a really beautiful effect. And I discovered that I do like to work with graphite on this particular paper. You'll see that I was working on a very dark drawing. It's leaning up against the window. I walked back, plopped down at the round table, looked up and saw the arc of my white t-shirt, and then behind it, the big dark star chart with the drawings growing in front of it, and knew I had a drawing that I had to do. Here's a close-up, and you can see how that star chart, it just pops up everywhere as I'm working. So we've talked about what I do and where I do it. Now, what I thought it would be kind of fun is to go through what would be a night's work with me. And so we are going to walk from my bedroom. This is the first thing I see around 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning as I'm wandering into our room. And that's the way I usually find my room, with my journal open on the table. And I am going to go up to it. And the first thing I try to do is pull down the dreams I had the night before. What's wonderful about working at this time period is that you have a clear slate. The whole previous day has been just completely absorbed. I go to bed at 7:30. I love it. I get up 12:30, 1:30. And, I'm coming out of a dream state. which is a wonderful place to wake up with your journal and to find yourself painting rather than sort of, oh, okay, I got to go paint. You really sort of wander into painting. You find yourself painting. You have a clear slate when you decide what you're going to work on. So it's a very, very nice time, a quiet time. And what I do to remember our dreams is I keep a little pad of paper with me. And you'll note the little spiral bound pad at the lower right of the image. And the first thing I do is try to read what I've written there. Well, some nights I come out with something I can't read at all. And the dream, well, you're not going to remember it. Sometimes I read a couple words that I have scribbled in the middle of the night, and when I could think of something that was a dream. Don't even turn on the light. I just sort of write it down and hope it can be read. And it will be an hour and a half's worth of dream that I've triggered. It'll take me that long to write it down. And sometimes it'll be like this night's dream. 3 words, can't remember anything else, but that's it, 3 words. And they're very evocative words, actually. 30 miles underground. Now, 30 miles underground. It was the 6th of November. It was 3 days after the US presidential elections. We were still waiting to hear who was going to be named the next president. That could have had something to do with it, but I don't make it tidy like that. 30 miles underground. There's a lot of claustrophobia in that. And I think the claustrophobia of the pandemic of 2020 could be reflected in that. But it could also be a personal problem, something I haven't been able to solve for myself. And so that could be reflected in it. But what's wonderful about this is I don't know what it means. I never will know exactly what it means. But boy, it turns out to be just sort of a reflection of what's going on. And I can really bounce myself off that. So what I'll do is write down 30 miles underground, and I'll move to painting. Now I'll find stacks of my drawings on the wall here in front of the star map, as I said. And the first thing I do is turn on the light, and we're going to take a look at these. And I'll get my coffee and I'll just sort of wander back in front of these. I'll usually go through the stacks sometimes. We're not going to go through the stacks today, but we're going to look at the front 5 drawings, and we're just going to see some of the considerations that I have about why I would pick something to work on. The first one we've looked at this long summer night. I've had it out all summer long. I'm really tired of it. The leaves have fallen off the trees mostly. The subject doesn't even look like that much anymore. I'm ready to put this away for 6 months. It's now becoming winter. I need to get away from it. I'll pick that up in a little bit later. In the spring. So we're going to look at that. Next, we'll look at what I call a good underdrawing. This is a pencil drawing. I've got an idea. It's a rainy piece. We're going to work on this one a little bit later after I get the rain in. We'll talk about that. This one, I don't know what to do with yet. I just started it. This one I started last spring. I've got the underwashes in, but I'm waiting for the leaves to fall off. This one, this is a good one because I need to work on this. The lights are on across the street. We'll work on that. That one I had out last night, and I was working on it because the light was on. That's all. I'm going to put that one away for a while. So we picked out we're going to work on today. And let's take the drawing off of my stack. I put it down on the table in front of the window, and you can see it on the left. And then I'm comparing it with one of the sketches that I have in my journal that I did last April when I first started to work on the piece before I put it away over the summertime. And what I've got is a much darker drawing. You'll see the edges in the sketch much darker around the top and at the bottom or at the side. And then there's also much darker areas around in the books and in the lighting in the central area that I'm going to work on. So what we're going to do is I did a little 2-minute video of me painting using my 2-brush watercolor technique, and I'll talk as we go first thing I do is wet. I want to wet the paper because on paper that's not damp, it goes, so it's there for good. What you want to do, so I put in just the right amount of water in, and I let it dry to just the certain dampness that I need. And then I will put in watercolor. This is dark mixture of raw umber violet and indigo, my near black that I was talking about. And you can see it's already been dropped into that wet page. It's the lower portion. So what I'm going to do is play this and talk to you as I work with the two. This is a water brush. I'm taking that water brush and I'm moving the pigment and the color around, putting it in the places. I'm sort of thinning out the paint a little bit as I go. I'm taking the water down a little that I've dampened before. Well, it has.
Charlie, excuse me, but we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No, we didn't hear your last few sentences.
Huh. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a bit.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me check my internet connection. I am by a wire. Do you hear me at all?
Now we do.
Okay, good. Let's keep hoping. So what I'm doing is working around those highlights, pulling color around, not letting them get wet in those white areas. That will be very tough to get out if I do. I'm also making sure that I soften the edges before I leave. And so I'm going to pick up the water up at the very top. And I oftentimes move things by capillary action. I will have the pigment or the watercolor in, and then I will move the brush ahead of it. And the color follows me. Rather than push it along, watercolor wants to do what it wants to do. But if you let it follow you, it'll do exactly what you want to or very close to it. So you just have to work with it. So we get to see here what I did. On the left is before that additions, and on the right are the additions that are have been made to the center part of the piece. Now, I actually, in a different campaign, darkened the edges around. So that was done at a completely different time. But you can see I did do darkening around the books and at some at the top. But the truth is, watercolor does not darken as much as it looks like it's going to when you first paint it in. It always dries lighter. So I'll have to go back in and work a little bit more on this to bring it down to the level of darkness that I need. But that is using the two brush technique, one with color, one with water, back and forth between the two. And that's how I virtually always work. And you saw me working at this station at the window. This is a 15-watt lamp under that baseball cap. I like a very dim light. I like to work in a low light because my eyes are constantly having to adjust to the darkness outside the window and in the room. So I won't blast myself out with a bright bulb. And then over on the right is a little IKEA lamp on a gooseneck. And I have toned down the brightness by putting a soft cloth over it and a rubber band that is directed onto my palette so I can see the colors that I'm working with at the time. You'll also notice I'm working on a dark table. I don't want a lot of extra light flooding my eyes, bouncing back up. And you'll look in the window, you can see, you can't see me. And the reason you can't is I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I'm conscious of what clothes I'm wearing for whatever I'm doing as well. You saw me working from these ceramic dishes. Ceramic dishes are marked with a grease pencil saying what's on the side so I can grab them quickly. Blue, yellow, red, green, all different colors of greens and reds and yellows and blues are in there. Easy to mix and get to. I also have manganese blue, Prussian blue, burnt sienna, dark green, warm sienna, and ultramarine blue in separate dishes if I need them. And also on the right, I will keep my watercolor pads. And these are tube colors that I have squeezed into these little boxes. And the one on the left, the group on the left is my watercolors. You can tell them because they have a lot of a reflection on them. You can see them shining back to you. They have a lot of gum arabic medium in them, and that's why they're transparent. You paint yellow on, and then you paint darker, or red or blue. You do not paint yellow on top of dark red or dark blue. It just doesn't work because they're transparent. You have to work from light to dark and preserve those colors as you go. Not so with gouache, which is on the right. Gouache is opaque watercolor. You can see how matte a gouache is. I don't use it very much. I'm still trying to figure out how I can use it. You can paint white right over black. It goes any direction you want to do. So I use those two boxes for just to get quick color if I need it. If I don't want to have to look for those ceramic dishes. You saw me use my Kolinsky sable brushes. Kolinsky sable are a Siberian weasel hair. They are the best brushes made. They are fantastic because they hold so much water. And then you can use a rag and pull them down to any dampness you want to. They are very flexible. They're very sturdy. You take care of them, they'll last forever. I've had some of these brushes for 25 years. They will last like nobody's business. They'll still point, and that's amazing for a watercolor brush. So they're very expensive, but they are absolutely worth every penny. On the left is a synthetic brush. The synthetic brushes I have are low Cornell 796 shaders. They are good for putting down very precise amounts of water in particular places, for edging, and also for picking up. They are very soft, but they are firm, and I'm able to scrub away. Now, one of the fallacies about watercolor is that it's down for good. Just give up. It's not going to come up. Well, that is absolutely not true, and I'm going to prove it to you with this little video. We're going to work on this particular piece, which we saw during our morning lineup. Originally, I was waiting for a rainy night. It is a rainy night piece. And it did happen on the 13th of November, pouring rain, and I sat at the window working with it. I've decided that I do want to open up an area, one of the trees in the middle, and I'm going to show you in one of my videos how I can scrub back to white. I could scrub this whole drawing back to white, and you probably would barely tell that it's ever been worked on. So here I am looking through my magnifier, and I'm going to show you how I use those little shader brushes, which are flat, and scrub away. I've got water on the brush. I'm scrubbing down and scrubbing out. I'll go back out, take the color that I've got on the brush off to a rag, in with some more water, scrub it down, back to the rag, back to more water, and then I'll scrub it back down again, and there you go. We have white. Really can happen. There's no use a rag to pick up. I'll let it cure for a few days and then I'll work back into it. So never let them tell you, especially with this Fabriano 140-pound hot press paper, very smooth paper with just a little tooth, comes up easy. It's fantastic. And here we get a good view of exactly what I did on the tree towards the center, pulling it out. Now I'm going to show you one last thing, how I use pen and ink. And I've got the round table at the center set up for pen and ink. In this, you can see all my tools for pen and ink. There's my Rapidograph pen. That is what I use to write in my journal with. I also use it for drawing, but the truth is it's really calibrated to have the exact width of a line. It's very hard to make it do various widths. That's why I oftentimes use a dip pen. I use a Hunt 104 finest crow quill pen. When you see the little crow quill pen in a staff just above the drawing. I have recently turned to Dr. Martin's Black Star matte ink. Really amazing ink, because most inks have lacquer in them, and they, as you build up the blacks, they start reflecting. Well, this is ink that just does not reflect. You can take it as dark as you want to and it won't reflect. I used to dip my staff down into the ink bottle, never knowing the level of the ink. I recently got these little ink wells. They're little rubber ink wells with plastic tops, and you can unscrewable top. You can dip your pen down into it and know exactly where the line is. It works perfectly for a dip pen, and I can make very fast crosshatch using that dip pen with a varied line. It's really nice. Places that I am having trouble getting to with the pen, or the either of the pens, I will oftentimes use a Kolinsky, like a 5/0 very fine brush, and some black wash or black watercolor to get to those spots. You'll see a test card to the right of me. I use the test card to just see how dark the brush or the pen is before I put it on. And I also keep a single edge razor blade near me if I have any area that I want to scrape back lightly into and take up some of the ink. And this is the drawing I've been working with. I've had it going, like I say, 3 years. Long ago, I put watercolor washes under it, and now I'm building up layers of black pen and ink over it to give it this kind of deep shade. And it's an exciting experiment. I've never done it before. Let's see what happens. I'll show you how fine the lines are, but we'll go in real close, really building up these various kinds of lines on top of that color to get that effect. So we've seen what I do, where I do it, and how I do it. Let's talk about why I do it. As I said, I go to bed real early, not great at parties. 7:30 is my limit. I go to bed, and then I get up at 1:30, and I feel great. I love it. And I'll work through the morning, and oftentimes I'll slip back into bed after the sun's up for maybe an hour, catch up a little bit. But it's really great. And the one thing that is really behind all this is something very simple. It's my body clock. I wake up at 1 o'clock, 1:30. That's just my nature. I've always been an early riser. When I was a kid, I had 4 younger siblings, and it was great to have the house by myself. So I've always been an early riser, and I tell students they should really think about what is the time that is best for them. When are they most active? And they should tune themselves to it. It's wonderful for me to walk out to this station, coming out of my dreams, and work into my painting, find myself painting, as I said. And it's also wonderful to have this journal ready, because, you know, sometimes I don't know what to do, but the journal is there, and I've always got something I can work in. And that was one reason that my journal came about, is because I always wanted to have my work with me. So Jenny and I developed this 4x6-inch journal that I could slip into my pocket. And it's always available for me to work. And I tell students, you know, okay, so 10 o'clock in the morning is the time when you're most active. Some people can't do 10 o'clock in the morning. So you got your journal with you. You can find 5 minutes to work in your journal. You can put an idea down. Put an idea down across the day. I did some of these ideas that you see in this sketchbook in 5 minutes. Granted, you may not be able to have your watercolor with you all the time. Well, the example I like to use is Cezanne. Cezanne had a pad of paper and a pencil. He didn't even use an eraser most of the time. He kept his work with him, and he worked mighty hard, and we see where Cezanne got. So if you want to start making drawings, you ought to keep a journal with you. I highly recommend it. Privacy. Now, I love my wife. We have a great time together. We're always together, but she likes to sleep longer than I do and at different hours. And thankfully, we have a big enough house so that I can go into the front room and she can sleep when she wants to, and I can just get to work. I have some headphones I can put on, or I can just listen to the night, but I have a lot to do right here in my own little private world. And that's why I love that time of night, because it's just not phone calls, not emails, very few people around, and it's wonderful. And privacy comes in lots of different forms. One of the things that I loved to do when I got to Pittsburgh, I was a kid who grew up in the deep South, and I made it to Carnegie Mellon, and I was so excited to be in the urban North. I love those big buildings reflected in the water of that city. The steel mills, some of them were still going at that time, those flaring in the water, looking up the mountainside beside the Ohio and Monongahela and Allegheny rivers, these lights reflecting in the water. It was just a gorgeous time. And I also fell in love with black there. Just the color black was so evocative. It could find forms that you just couldn't find with any other color. It was magnificent. I love the shapes that you could find using black, and building these images in my own private world, driving around in my Ford Mustang along those rivers. It was a magical moment for me, and that privacy was just right there. Nobody was around. I loved it. When I got to Washington, D.C., that love of privacy followed me. I used to go live in Cleveland Park area of Washington, D.C., and go running early morning around the National Cathedral. This is a piece entitled The Bend. It was one of the areas that I ran along during that period of time. And incidentally, I was looking at this piece as I was putting this lecture together, and I noticed the title, The Bend, and the year 1984. And I was thinking, oh, oh, 1984. I was rounding the bend. I got married in 1984. Sometimes you're doing things in your work, they have personal associations that you don't recognize are there and don't discover them until many years later. This is 36 years after the fact. I sort of thought of that. I had a series of journals at the beginning. Oh, imagine almost the first 80 of my journals were not made by Jenny. They are off the shelf books. So you don't have to have a perfect work of art sketchbook made by your wife to do a great sketchbook. I loved these little journals. I love Jenny's more, but I mean, these were great for me to grow up with and learn to draw in. They were called the Next to Nothing book. I think they phased out in 92. That's probably why Jenny started picking up and making my books at that period of time. But in this, the two bottom drawings are sketches where I am trying to figure out if I'm going to be in the composition or not. There is a window, a mirror at the left of each of these compositions, and you just barely see me and if I'm going to be there or not. This is the drawing it relates to. I was working to put me in that mirror at the left. At first I was there, then I erased myself out, then I put myself back in, then I erased myself out, put myself in. I said, no, you are not in this. The face is a lightning rod for attention. You go right to the face. You stay there sometimes. And it's really, to me, a matter of privacy if there's somebody staring back at you from an image, whether I want to include a face or not in my work. Astronomy. I tell students, find something that you love and put it in your work in an imaginative way. And I think astronomy is one of the things that I just started with. I love astronomy. It goes way back. I used to carry this little book around, Stars by Herbert Zim and James Gordon Irving. It's an amazing little book, beautiful indigo illustrations, just fill this book. It's all about stars and the constellations, but it's also about the motions of the planets, eclipses, the tides on Earth, clouds, weather. Everything is included in this book, and I just kind of grew up on it. And I love having this bottom of knowledge beneath the work that I'm doing. I include astronomical events in my journals. Here's an image of an alignment that happened this past April. You see the crescent moon and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter aligned. I always, if I find something exciting, I'll sit down and drop it into my journal quickly. Astronomical events actually find their way into my works. This is called Night with Orion. It was a piece done essentially in graphite and pen and ink. It has a faithfully rendered Orion constellation in the upper right, and to the left is Sirius the dog star, also faithfully rendered. You'll notice that there's a seams that run horizontally through the composition. And what I decided to do in this work was transcribe my dreams from my journals from 2004 and 2005, that winter, running through the composition, sort of like my dreams running through the night. Here is the pen and ink drawing that I'm working on of that, related to that photograph that I took of the light at a particular time of year. Actually, the light happens only for a few moments at the end of October. For about a week, you can capture this kind of effect, and then it's gone. And I really like to work in front of the effect. So I really try to stick to that. I will work at it occasionally, but mostly I'm waiting for late October and this effect to happen. This year, I'd been working on this for a couple of years. This year, it was cloudy virtually all week long. I think I got to see this effect once. So being resourceful and knowing a little bit of astronomy, I know how to use an analemma. Now, you may not know what an analemma is, but it's on most globes. And it shows you the declination of the sun across the year. And you can see that at late October, lower right, the sun is right there at the edge of the lower right of the analemma. And then you start swinging down to the solstice on 21st of December. And then it swings back up, and the sun's declination will be just about at the same point in mid-February. So I've decided I've used this analemma to get myself back to the new place. And my target is to pull this drawing back out in mid-February and start working again. So astronomy guides me in lots of ways. There's a lot of play in my work. I'm all excited about different kinds of effects and trying new things. This particular drawing, I was trying, hey, what if we put blue and green and orange and yellow under the washes? See what kind of effects we can get. On the left is the under washes with some of the final color washed into it. And on the right is the finished drawing. But there is also another kind of play, I think, is going on in this particular work. For example, you've got, the feeling of the theater almost in some of these works. The sun goes down, the moon comes up, the lights go on, the interior lights I control, the outdoor lights I can't. That's the Dada part of the performance. Is it going to be raining? Is the street light on or off? Are the neighbors' lights on or off? What can I work with tonight? I am sort of like a stage manager or a director. Do I put the picture here? Where do I move it? How much light is on the picture? How bright are the lights? All of this I am channeling toward a little performance for myself. And I guess when I finish the work, maybe it's a performance for you as well. What shirt should I wear? Should I wear the dark shirt and be up close? Or should I be wearing the light shirt and sit way back? How large is the piece? What colors am I going to use? Or is it black and white? There are all sorts of things I'm thinking about as I'm creating the work. So, time. And this is the passage of all time on Earth is really measured by night and day. And I'm currently reading a terrific book, and it's called The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. This is an Italian physicist who has the heart of a poet. And he has distilled down what contemporary physics thinks time actually is. And it's not long, it's 7 chapters, and it can be very slow going, but it is truly marvelous and full of some of the most amazing things that I've ever read in my life. It's my goal, one of my goals in my life, to understand every bit of that book, and I certainly do not yet. But one of the things he told me that I didn't realize is that the time at the bottom of your feet goes slower than at the time at the top of your head. That, of course, is because it's closer to this great mass of Earth. But time is different up here than it is down there. And if you are in the same room with me and you say, wink your eye, I see you a nanosecond of a nanosecond after you've winked your eye. So my present and your present are not the same thing. And if there's somebody living on a planet 4 light years away, any communications you have from these people was what was to you 4 years ago. So they certainly have a completely different present than we do. The point of all this is that there is no universal present. And by extension, and what I think is absolutely the most amazing thing is that in contemporary physics, there is no difference between the past and the future. They are absolutely equivalent. And when you think about it, that makes sense if everybody's present is different. There are these myriad presents all over. And we are locked into our own personal present because that's our physiology. That's the way we're built. Everything else, all the other presents, are blurred to us. Well, this is fascinating stuff, but I mean, I'm not sure exactly what it's got to do with my work. Well, this is one of the first pieces that I did when I got to this house. What it means to me is that's basically kind of what I'm interested in doing in my work, is stretching across time, treating all my time as equivalent, looking across all these images I created and integrating all the times that I have had with these images. I've been working on this drawing for 32 years. It's neither a day or a night piece. It's just been done sitting at this window. I'm looking at the landscape, watching trees grow, watching things like dogwoods and redbuds and small trees come and go, adding incrementally to this drawing over time. And so what I'm doing when I'm working with this drawing is I'm looking at it across time. I'm communing with the various forms that have been in front of me, the various events that have been in front of me, and integrating them into this work. But this is the same piece of paper I've been working on for 32 years. When I was someone half my age, I was working on this. So I'm also communing with myself over this period of time that I've been working on this drawing. We're gonna look closer, oops, we can see that oak tree that was straight across from us was very thin when we first moved in. It grew larger. It grew even larger than that. And then a couple of years ago, it was cut down. Now this drawing is open. I could go back in, work with it. But the idea is stretching across time. And when I work on another piece, a simple piece, well, I say simple, a piece I've done over a couple of years, what I'm looking at is something that I accrue lots and lots of observations about, thousands, 100,000s in a single work, observations that are made, accumulated, reworked, rethought. I'm building this with my younger self and with my present self and growing them into what my future self will do. So I'm stretching across time there. And of course, when I sit down in front of my 157 journals and counting, and I look back, I'm talking to this kid of 23 years old, and he's talking to me. Boy, he wanted to learn to draw bad. He got on his Ford Mustang and had this picture taken. And when I look in his first journal, sometimes I look at it and say, you're full of it. And sometimes he looks at me and he says, no, you're full of it. And sometimes we go on together and we go someplace new together. So what I'm doing whenever I turn into these books, I'm looking across time, talking to myself across time and learning from myself, sharing myself across time. So I have a recurring dream. I'm sitting at my window and I can reach out and I can touch the surface of the moon. And I look up and space is bending back on me. And I can reach up and I can grab the planets. And I can stick my hand out in among the stars. It's exhilarating to have that dream. I love that dream. And it reminds me of why I love the night and why I love to come out here early in the morning, work on those journals and pull down these drawings and take them further. Because it's at that moment when I realize how close I feel to the mystery and the beauty and the strangeness of this universe. Thank you.
Charlie,
Okay.
that was very, very well done.
Appreciate it.
And it makes me aware, although we own several of your pieces, we have several years of your life and a lot of your creative talent right here in little nutshells all across our walls. It's amazing.
Well, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it so much.
Charlie, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. Your talk was so
Well, thank you.
fabulous. I don't know what to say. But thank you so much for the wonderful insight into the inspiration, time, personal philosophy, your whole persona that
Thank you.
that inform your works. I'm going to look at the pieces we have with whole new eyes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a number of questions and I want to make sure I can get to them. So let me say, someone has asked, what is your preferred paper to use? I don't know if you.
Yeah, I did mention it, but I said it very quickly. I love in my drawings outside the book, it's 140-pound Fabriano hot press paper. And I find it very durable and I just love the feel. And I've got to know it so well that it just sort of makes sense to just keep using it. And I've got plenty of it. So, you know, I'm not going to run out of it. In my books, we tear Arch's 90-pound hot press paper. The 90-pound is a lighter weight paper. It folds into a book better.
And someone also asked, would you consider publishing your journals? And of course you have, but you have to tell us how which ones you did.
Yes, well, I did, and I want to shout out to my buddy, James Stroud, who is here. He is my printer publisher in Boston, and James has done incredible work for me over the years. And yes, we did a small, I guess it was about a 10, 12 page book, an accordion fold based on my journal of 2008. And it was just a couple pages that I had picked out. And we translated it into mezzotint, which is my preferred printmaking medium. And I've got a few of my mezzotints here I can show you in a second if you like. But that is basically, you know, that's where it was. That's what I did, is work with those attempt to do that reproduction. As far as reproducing them, sure, I would. Everybody's going to ask, what does it say? You know, I'm not sure that, you know, I don't think it really matters what it says. I mean, I guess if somebody really wants to know. I've often said that somebody is reading their dreams to me, it gets boring very quickly. It's not boring for me, and maybe somebody else thinks it's exciting, but you know, I'm not against it at all. It would have to be done absolutely right. It would just have to be done right, and I think that's the important thing.
Someone asked, first of all, thank you so much for this presentation. I love your relationship with time, totally new perspective. Can you repeat the name of the book?
Oh yeah. It is The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. And it's a wonderful book, but most people are not going to have a lark with it. I mean, he's done such a good job distilling this stuff down, but I'm getting to quantum physics and I'm just going, oh, yeah. But what I've done is I've gotten the audio book, and while I'm drawing, I just let the thing play over and over and over again. And finally, some of it's starting to sink in. But it's a wonderful journey. And he has a bunch of other books. He really is an amazing mind who is, I think he's called the new Stephen Hawking, if you knew who Stephen, but he could make very complex things, at least semi-accessible to us lay people.
Well, any other, I think we've reached the end of our questions. If you have
I just
another-
want to ask real fast, Charlie, what artists inspire you the most?
Oh, you know, I almost said that. You know, the artists in the studio, Velasquez, Las Meninas, as I said, Carlo. I think Carlo has some wonderful artists in the studio, but also his landscapes. I just think he's over the top. He is so good. And then Vermeer, the art of painting, you know, where his back is turned, and the young girl holds a horn. That is just a, you know, painting I can do. But any of Vermeer, I loved seeing that Vermeer show. I just think Vermeer is fantastic. And Michelangelo, always Michelangelo's drawings. Caspar Friedrich, I think he's just got this spirit that just penetrates everything. I love his work a lot. I think Giorgio Morandi's my artist of the 20th century. He's just an artist that I can go to always, and he's taken the kind of spiritual and hyper physical to a new level, and I love his work.
Oh, Charlie, one quick thing. Check out the drawings of Adolf Menzel.
Oh, I love him. I love Menzel. Yes, I do.
He carried a sketch pad in his pocket too, wherever he went.
He's fantastic. I love him. Listen, can I have the screen again? I want to show you the prints. I want to just show you the prints that Jim and I have done most recently. And this is house one. Oops, sorry. I'm going to learn how to do this yet. House one. It's a mezzotint on paper. Jim and I did this one together. It's just one of the three houses. Here is how.
We're not seeing it.
You're not. Let me see. Okay, excuse me. Let's see if I can go back and hit share screen. Well, am I out of the meeting now?
I think you might be. I don't know.
Well, I want to go back in.
Well, you're still here, but we don't see Jim's.
I'm sorry. Let me see if I can go back in.
Nancy, did you want to say something?
I did enable his screen sharing, so if it's not happening, it's something technical beyond my.
Okay, let's see if I can go in. I'm sorry about this.
Oh, that's all right.
Let's see what we can do here. We'll try it one more time, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, I can also finish up with.
There's something else we could do.
Yeah,
If
what can
you
we
were
do?
to send me those images, I could include them in the follow-up email to
Why
participants.
don't we do that? I think
Well,
that's great
yeah.
because I'm not going to be able to find this, I don't think.
No,
Or are they on Jim Stroud's website?
Oh, here we are. I found me. Hey, okay, I'm going to share my screen now. And here we go. And I'm going to show you, this is house 2.
ah,
Can you see it?
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, there's house 2 and there's house 3. And those are 3 prints Jim and I did fairly recently together. And then also there is the 3 together so you can get a little bit better view. But of course, they're on the website. And I thank Jim very much for coming today. And also Jason Hom and Sophia Choi, Jason Hom in Korea. I so appreciate your being here. They had the most wonderful show. If you haven't seen the easel presentation, there's a link from my website or Jason's website to the show they did, and it was just phenomenal. There's a kind of a virtual reality recording of the show, and you can walk through the show I did in March and April.
Thank you, Charlie.
You bet.
No.
thank you, Charlie, for everything. This was
Yes.
fabulous.
I am so
Thank you
glad.
enough for doing this.
No question about it. It's a lot of fun. I love sharing my
Good.
work with people.
Good, great.
Right. Good deal.
All right, hope
Thank
to talk
you.
to you soon.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Charlie.
Kim. You bet,
Bye.
buddy. All right.
Thank you
Now.
for
Hey,
coming,
Jason.
everyone.
See you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you now. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's great.
Mm.